How does one playful flirt with a restaurant host at an anniversary dinner turn into divorce papers in your hand before the night is over? What happens when a wife calls it a joke? Her friends laugh, and her husband quietly walks out, only to end the marriage by lawful steps she never saw coming. Can you still call him the villain when the result lands in front of your whole family and he never raises his voice? Before we dive deeper into this story, I have one small request. Please subscribe, drop a like, comment, and hit that hype button to boost this channel so more people can discover these incredible stories. My name is Verena Hale, and I honestly still think I did nothing wrong that morning. It was our anniversary, and the first thing I saw when I walked into the kitchen was Elliot standing by the counter with the bills spread out. There was a stack of envelopes, his laptop, and that little frown line between his eyebrows. I hated that line. It made him look older than 35, like some worried father from a boring commercial. I wanted a husband who smiled when he saw me, not one who looked at numbers. He said he was checking our budget again. He asked if I had looked at the credit card statement from last month. I said I had more important things to do than stare at numbers all morning. I told him it was our anniversary, and he should at least say, "Happy anniversary," before he started talking about money. He blinked, like I had slapped him, then said, "Of course, happy anniversary," and he came over and kissed my cheek. It felt like an apology, not passion. I opened the fridge and stared at the shelf with the cheap yogurt and plastic containers. I said I refused to spend our special night in this kitchen, eating leftovers. I told him I had already booked a table at Lumiere. I said I deserved one nice night a year that felt like a movie. He asked why I hadn't told him before I made the reservation. I told him he should be happy I made any plans at all, because most wives just give up when their husbands become boring. Elliot asked if Lumiere was not too expensive. I said he always made me feel guilty for wanting nice things. I mentioned how hard I worked at the agency, how many events I organized for other people. I said other women in my office got surprise trips and gifts from their husbands. I asked why my husband could not even handle one dinner. He was quiet for a moment, then he said we could go, but we should try not to add more wine or extras. I laughed and told him he sounded like my accountant, not my partner. While we ate breakfast in silence, I scrolled through my phone under the table. I sent a message to my friend Tasha at work saying, "He is already complaining about the price for tonight." She replied that he needed to remember what he had. She sent a winking emoji and wrote that I should show him off so other people would be jealous. I liked that. Respect follows results, and I had results. I was the one who made our life look good. At the office later that morning, I felt like myself again. The open-plan room was full of voices and screens and coffee smells. People came to my desk with questions about the next product launch. My manager said the client loved my last event. Tasha rolled her chair over and asked what I was wearing tonight. I told her about Lumiere, about how the host there always treated me like VIP because I booked events with them. I said he remembered my name every time. I joked that maybe he had a crush on me. Tasha laughed and said I should see Elliot's face if the host flirted with me in front of him. I told her Elliot was already acting jealous, and I called it cute, like a dog growling over a toy. I said sometimes men needed to feel a little pressure, or they stopped trying. She agreed and said men got lazy when they felt safe. She said a little envy was healthy. In my head, that felt true. If Elliot was nervous, it meant he still cared. Around lunch, my sister Jade sent me a voice note. She asked if we were doing anything Instagram-worthy tonight. I told her about the bistro. I said it was very pretty, soft lights and good cocktails, and that the host looked like a model. I said maybe she should swing by and take some content for her channel. She said that could be fun, and asked if Elliot would be annoyed. I said he would survive, and if he didn't like it, that was his problem. When I finished my calls and emails, I opened Lumiere's page to check our booking. The photo at the top had Marco, the host, in the background, half smiling toward the camera. I remembered how he once joked that I was their favorite guest, even though Elliot barely said a word. It was not serious. He was just charming. That was his job. Still, it felt good to be noticed. I messaged Jade a screenshot and wrote, "This is the guy. Imagine Elliot's face." She replied with 3 laughing emojis. On the way home, I stopped by a small cafe and looked at dresses on my phone. I chose a tight black one from the back of my closet in my mind. Elliot always said it was a bit much for dinner, but that was the point. I wanted people to look at me. I wanted Elliot to see other people look at me. Maybe then he would stop talking about bills and bring some fire back. If a little flirting from a stranger was needed to wake him up, how was that my fault? When I got home, Elliot was still at the table with his laptop. The bills were in a neat stack now, not spread out. He asked what time the reservation was. I told him 8, and that I had asked for our usual corner table. He looked up and asked since when we had a usual table. I laughed and told him that maybe if he paid attention, he would know that I had been there many times for work. I reminded him I was the one with the social life. He asked if the staff knew me well. I told him of course they did, and that one of them was very good at making me feel welcome. I meant Marco. I saw a small change in his face, a little tightness around his mouth, and I felt a strange thrill. It was nice to know I could still get a reaction from him. I said he should relax and enjoy the free VIP treatment we got because of me. He said he just wanted us to have a quiet night together. I said quiet nights were for old people. While he put away his laptop, I went to the bedroom to get ready. I pulled on the black dress and turned in front of the mirror until the light hit just right. I told myself I worked hard for this body and this life, and I had the right to enjoy it. I imagined walking into the restaurant, Marco's eyes lighting up, my sister's phone recording, other diners turning to see who we were. I pictured Elliot sitting across from me, stiff and polite, finally realizing what he might lose if he did not step up. I checked our reservation again and saw the little note I had added, "Special anniversary for V&E. She loves attention." It made me smile. Honestly, I thought I was doing everyone a favor. When we walked into Lumiere that night, I felt like I was entering a scene where I was finally the main character, not someone's tired wife who argued about bills. The place was softly lit, all warm gold and dark wood, the kind of room that made everyone look better than they really were. The hostess smiled and asked for our name. Before Elliot could answer, Marco came around the corner. He spotted me, and his face changed in a way I liked. He opened his arms slightly, said how good it was to see me again, and asked if this was the famous anniversary. I said yes, and told him he made the place worth it. Elliot stood there, half a step back. Marco put his hand at the small of my back and led us through the dining room. I saw a couple at another table glance at us. I imagined they thought we were some glamorous pair, or at least that I was. Marco told me the chef had a surprise for us, for you especially, and I laughed and asked what I had done to deserve that. He said I lit up the room last time. It was nothing, just a compliment, but it felt like a spark after years of grey. Elliot's jaw was tight when we sat down. He asked Marco about the menu in a flat tone. Marco gave a short answer and then turned back to me. He said he remembered I liked my wine a certain way and asked if I still did. I told him I trusted his taste. When he walked away, Elliot asked how well I knew him. I said I came here for work, and he was just being friendly. I told him not to be weird on our anniversary. We ordered starters. I leaned across the table and asked Elliot what was wrong. He said the host was being too familiar. I said he was being insecure. I reminded him that people were watching and that he should not make a scene. He said he was not the one making a scene. I told him he was overreacting to a man doing his job. While we waited for the food, I took out my phone. I snapped a photo of the candle and our drinks and posted it with a caption about celebrating love and hard work. I tagged the restaurant. Almost right away, Jade sent me a message asking if she should swing by. I told her to come, that it would make the night more fun. Elliot asked who I was texting. I told him Jade might join us and that he should be happy his wife had friends who wanted to celebrate with her. Marco kept coming back. He refilled my glass even when I had only taken a sip. He asked about my job, my events, my clients. I answered in detail, enjoying the way he listened. Elliot tried to add something about a project he was working on. Marco nodded politely, but did not ask any follow-up questions. Instead, he asked me if I had picked his favorite table for us. I joked that I came here so often, I should start earning points. Elliot went quiet. Jade arrived about halfway through the main course, loud as always. She hugged me first, then gave Elliot a quick squeeze and told him he was lucky. She waved at Marco like she knew him. I realized she had watched my stories more closely than I thought. She pulled out her phone and said she wanted a little anniversary video. She asked Marco if he could come stand with us for a second. He did, and she asked him to say who his favorite couple was. He said he only had one favorite person and pointed at me. I laughed and put my hand on his shoulder. Jade told me to blow the camera a kiss, so I did. I sent it right past Marco, like a joke. Elliot told Jade this was supposed to be a private dinner. Jade said people loved seeing real marriages, and that a bit of fun kept things alive. She added that other men would kill to have a wife who still turned heads. I liked that line. I noticed a couple at the next table looking over. The woman gave Elliot a small, sympathetic smile. The man had that uncomfortable face people put on when they want to pretend they are not watching something messy. I chose to ignore them. Elliot asked Jade to put her phone away. I told him he was acting like an old man. I reminded him this was what I did for a living, that I understood social media and attention, and he did not. The dessert came with a sparkler and a small card. On the card was written, "For the stunning Verena, happy anniversary," with a little heart and an M. Jade hooted when she saw it. She said even the staff was flirting with me. She turned the card toward her camera. Elliot picked it up and looked at it for a long moment. He told Marco it was inappropriate to write that on a card meant for a married couple. Marco shrugged and said he was just being nice, and that there was no harm meant. I told Elliot to relax and enjoy the free dessert. Elliot asked me quietly if I would like it if some woman flirted with him in front of me all night. I said that would never happen. I said women did not line up for quiet engineers in boring shirts. I added that I would be happy if someone made him feel special, because maybe then he would understand what I needed. His face closed off even more. Jade suggested a toast. She raised her glass and told us to drink to Verena being too hot for one man to handle. I clinked my glass to hers, smiling across the table. Elliot barely lifted his. Jade told him he should smile more, that he looked like a funeral guest. I said he always got serious when things were about me. I claimed he did not know how to handle a woman with attention. The server dropped the check. The bill folder rested between us like a quiet jury. Elliot opened it and checked the total. He slipped his card inside, then paused. He looked at me, at Jade, at Marco chatting with another table, then back at me again. He told me in a calm voice that he did not want to be part of this performance anymore. I asked what performance he was talking about. I laughed, waiting for him to blush and back down. Instead, he stood up. He placed the bill folder, with his card already inside, at the edge of the table. He told Jade she could finish filming if she wanted. He said he would wait outside. The way he said it didn't sound like a regular step outside. It sounded like something else, something larger. Then he walked away through the restaurant, leaving me in the warm light with my half-finished dessert, and my sister's phone pointed at my face. The next morning, the house felt like a hotel lobby after a party. Quiet, cleaned up, but with a strange emptiness underneath. Elliot was already awake when I came into the kitchen. The blinds were half open, and weak light sat on the counter. He stood by the sink with one mug, his mug, the one with the little chips on the handle. My mug was on the other side of the counter, already filled with coffee but not moved closer to him. It was like the space between them had become something solid in the night. He said good morning in a flat voice. I said it back and asked if he had enjoyed his walk outside the restaurant. He replied that he went home early because he did not want to watch his wife flirt with another man in public. I asked if he heard himself. I told him it was a joke, a bit, content, and that he was acting like I had done something unforgivable. He said he did not want to argue before work. I said I deserved at least an apology for him walking out and making me look stupid in front of Jade. He said I did not look stupid to anyone but myself. That line stung in a way I did not expect. I told him he was gaslighting me, that he was twisting a simple fun moment into some big drama. He shook his head and said he needed to shower, then walked past me without touching my arm or waist or anything at all. While he was in the bathroom, I opened my phone and checked Jade's messages. She had sent me several clips from the night. There was one where Marco stood close behind me, his hand near my shoulder, while I laughed into the camera. Another with the dessert card. In one video, you could see Elliot stand up and walk away, his back straight, his shoulders stiff. I trimmed that part out. I edited the clip so it ended with me laughing and the sparkler going off. I posted it with a caption about married life but still got it. Within minutes, likes started rolling in. People commented that I looked amazing, that the host was obviously into me. Someone wrote that Elliot must be proud. I smiled at that and did not answer. On my way to work, I kept telling myself he would calm down. He always did. Elliot hated conflict. He would swallow it like a pill and move on. Maybe he would sulk for a day or two, but then he would be normal again. I was sure it would be the same this time. At the office, Tasha rolled her chair over as soon as she saw me. She asked how the night went. I told her it was wild, that the host flirted with me, that Jade showed up and turned it into a mini-show. I left out the part where Elliot left. I said he had to step outside for a work call, nothing more. She said the host was brave to act like that in front of my husband, and asked if Elliot was jealous. I told her he pretended he did not care, but I could tell it got to him. I framed it as a good thing, proof I was still valuable. Later, one of the other women from accounting came over with a hesitant smile. She said she saw my story and asked if my husband was okay with all that. I laughed and said he knew what he signed up for when he married me. I called myself high energy and said some men just couldn't keep up. Her smile faded a little. She said something about hoping we were both happy. I brushed it off as her being old-fashioned. At lunch, Jade insisted we meet at a neighborhood cafe. She bounced in, full of stories already. She played the unedited video on her phone, the one where Elliot walked away. She said people in her comments were asking what happened after. I told her to cut that part. I said it made him look bad and I didn't want to start drama. She said drama got views. I told her she could suggest he stepped out to take a call. She rolled her eyes but said she would fix it, as long as she could still use the flirt with Marco. Over coffee, Jade asked what Elliot had said that morning. I told her he accused me of disrespecting him. I said he was acting like an insecure teenager. Jade said he needed to understand that a pretty wife was a blessing. She suggested I use this to make him step up, maybe ask for a trip or something bigger. I liked the sound of that. Use this as leverage, not shame. I told her I felt he was punishing me with silence. She said men like him didn't know how to handle a woman with options. She called him emotionally weak. I didn't correct her. When I got back to the office, I checked my notifications again. Someone had tagged Elliot in the comments under my post, saying he was a lucky man. He hadn't liked the post, though. That annoyed me more than it should. Tasha suggested I leave it up anyway, to show I wasn't afraid of being seen. She said he would look ridiculous if he made it a big thing. In the late afternoon, after another meeting, I opened our shared digital calendar to check a work thing. That was when I noticed it, a new repeating event. It ran every Thursday at 11:30 a.m. It was labeled simply, Meeting Personal Downtown. It had started 2 weeks ago, before the anniversary, and it was set to repeat for the next few months. I stared at it for a moment. Elliot never used the word personal in our shared calendar. He usually wrote exact things, like project review or dentist. My first thought was something dramatic, like he was seeing someone else. Then I laughed at myself. Elliot was not that type. He barely talked to anyone outside of work and family. The idea of him having someone on the side seemed almost funny. Still, it bothered me that he hadn't mentioned it. I sent him a quick message asking since when he had Thursday personal meetings downtown. He replied a few minutes later, saying it was something he needed to take care of and that he would explain later. I asked if it was a surprise for me. He said no, not in the way I thought. When I came home that evening, I expected him to be ready for a fight or maybe a long talk. Instead, he was sitting at the small table by the window with his laptop open. A spreadsheet glowed on the screen. I saw columns and numbers, but not the names. A faint smell of printer toner hung in the air. There was a tidy stack of papers next to him, face down. He greeted me politely and asked how my day was. I said it was fine and added that people loved our anniversary post. He said he had seen it. He did not say he liked it. I asked if he was going to complain again. He said no, he was done complaining. The way he said it made the hair on my arm stand up, though I told myself I was being dramatic. I went to the kitchen and saw 2 clean mugs on opposite counters again, like they were magnets turned the wrong way. The little shift in our home routines, the way he moved his things into the guest room later that night, the way he locked that drawer in there before bed, I told myself it was all just him sulking. I had no idea he was already lining up every single thing I had done, turning my jokes and content into something that could hurt me. I did not plan to cheat on Elliot that week. It just happened, and honestly, I still think he pushed me toward it. Work was crazy 2 days after the anniversary. I had back-to-back calls, a client who wanted last-minute changes, and a boss who kept thanking me for saving their campaign. I sat at my desk, buzzing from coffee and praise, and I felt far away from the quiet kitchen and the way Elliot stared at spreadsheets. In that world, I was needed, admired, interesting. At home, I was just the woman who spent too much on dinner. Around noon, my phone buzzed with a message from Lumiere's account. It was Marco. He wrote that he hoped I enjoyed the night and that I had stolen the show. He added that he was sorry if he made things awkward with my husband. I stared at the message, trying to decide how I felt. Part of me liked that he noticed there was a problem. It meant he'd been watching us. I wrote back that my husband could be a little stiff, but it was nothing new. I said not to worry, that I appreciated his attention. He replied that attention was the least he could give someone like me. It was cheesy, but it hit me in a soft place. I told myself it was harmless to enjoy it. Tasha saw me smiling at my phone and rolled her chair over. She asked if the host had messaged me. I said yes and showed her the screen. She whistled and said he was bold. She asked if I was going to meet him. I laughed and said of course not, then added that maybe a coffee wouldn't hurt. She raised an eyebrow and said it depended on what I wanted. I joked that maybe I needed a reminder that I was still wanted by someone who actually looked at me. Later that afternoon, when the client finally approved the event plan, I felt that empty drop people get after a rush. I didn't want to go home to Elliot's silence yet. Marco messaged again, asking how my day was. I wrote that it was stressful. He said I could come by the cafe near Lumiere if I needed a break. I looked at the time. It was only a short walk, and the office was winding down. I told myself it was just coffee. The cafe was small but stylish, with plants and soft music. Marco was already there, leaning against the counter in a plain t-shirt that somehow still looked good. He smiled when he saw me and said he was glad I came. He asked about my job, my boss, my clients. I told him stories, and he laughed in all the right places. He said Elliot was lucky but maybe didn't know how to show it. I said Elliot used to show it, but now he just showed me spreadsheets. We sat too close in the corner. Our knees brushed under the small table. When I mentioned the anniversary video, He said he had watched it again and again, that the way I laughed was dangerous. I pretended to roll my eyes, but I didn't move away. At one point, his hand rested on my knee for a second too long. I did not remove it. When we left the cafe, he walked me back toward my office, but took the side street behind the buildings. In the shadow of the alley, he stopped and said he didn't want to cross a line if I wasn't comfortable. I said it was just a coffee between friends. He looked at me for a long moment, then leaned in. I could have stepped back. Instead, I lifted my chin. The kiss was quick but not soft. It felt like opening a window after holding my breath for too long. I pulled away and laughed, saying I was a married woman and he was trouble. He said my husband was the one who let me walk around feeling unseen. I told myself it was just a kiss, nothing serious, a small rebellion, something I could keep in a little box in my head, away from the rest of my life. On the way home, guilt pricked at me once or twice, but I pushed it down. I told myself Elliot had moved into the guest room first. He had put his feelings into a calendar labeled personal before I ever met Marco alone. In my mind, I was reacting, not acting. When I got home, the apartment smelled faintly of printer ink and coffee. The guest room door was half open. I peeked in. Elliot sat at the desk we had dragged in there last year, laptop open, a neat grid of cells on the screen. He had headphones around his neck, not on his ears. On the shelf above him, I saw a small row of labeled folders: household, bank, utilities, and one without a label yet. A small shredder sat by the wall, its basket neatly empty. He turned when he sensed me. He said he was just sorting some documents. I asked why he couldn't do that in the living room like he used to. He said he wanted to keep things organized. I told him it felt like he was hiding from me. He said he needed space to think. I asked if this was about the stupid little joke at the restaurant. He said it was about a pattern, not just one night. His voice was calm, and that bothered me more than if he had shouted. I went to the supermarket later, partly to avoid being in the same room with his calmness. The aisles were bright and full of quiet people. I threw things into the cart with more force than needed. In the dairy section, I ran into Linda. She stood there with a basket of simple food: bread, milk, fruit. She greeted me kindly and asked how things were. I said fine, busy, like always. She looked at me for a moment with those steady eyes of hers and said Sophie had told her Daddy was sleeping in the other room now. I laughed and said we just needed some space. I told her Elliot was being dramatic about a silly dinner. I said men did not like seeing their wives get attention. Linda nodded slowly and said children needed stability more than little shows. I felt the sting in the word shows. I pretended not to hear it and changed the subject. When we parted, I felt oddly judged, even though she never raised her voice. Back home, Sophie dragged her backpack into her room. Elliot followed, holding one of her picture books. I leaned against the hallway wall and listened. She asked him if he and Mommy were still mad. He said no, they were just figuring things out. She asked if they would sleep in the same room again. He said he didn't know yet, but that he would always be there for her. His voice was gentle. Mine would have cracked if I tried to say those things. Later that night, I lay in our bed alone, scrolling through my phone. Marco had sent another message. A simple thinking of you with a smiling face. I liked it, but did not answer. I told myself I was being responsible. In the quiet, I heard a soft beep from down the hall, like a phone confirming something. Then the faint start-stop sound of the shredder. I got up and walked barefoot to the guest room. The door was mostly closed, but not all the way. Through the gap, I could see Elliot at the desk again. A USB stick, labeled only with that day's date, lay on the table for a moment before he taped it under a fat folder marked taxes. The printer light was on, but no paper was coming out. The laptop screen flashed a small window that said, "File uploaded successfully," then disappeared. He heard the floor creak and turned his head. He asked if I needed something. I said I just wondered what he was doing. He replied he was organizing our life. I told him he was being dramatic. I said if he had a problem, he should talk to me like an adult instead of hiding in here. He looked at me for a long time and said he planned to talk soon, and that, this time, he would do it properly. The way he said that word made me want to laugh and shiver at the same time. Instead, I rolled my eyes, told him he was not scaring me, and went back to bed, clutching my phone like a shield. The day after he said he would talk to me properly, I woke up with a sharp, mean energy in my chest. It felt like a hangover without alcohol. I was tired of the silent treatment. I decided I wasn't going to wait for him to pick the moment anymore. If he wanted a talk, then we would have one, my way. In the morning, the apartment was too neat. Sophie sat at the table with her cereal, swinging her legs. Elliot stood near the sink, already in a clean shirt, his work bag by the door. His mug was in the same place as always now, on that edge of the counter near the guest room. My mug was on the island. 2 stations, 2 lives. I said good morning and kissed Sophie's head. She asked if we were going to eat together tonight. I said yes, of course. Elliot said he might be late. I asked why. He said he had his Thursday meeting. My eyes went straight to the clock on the oven. It was the same day and time as on the calendar. Meeting, personal downtown, 11:30 a.m. I asked him again what those meetings were. He said they were private. I laughed and told him private things were for single people. I asked if he was seeing someone. He said calmly that he didn't have to see someone else to decide what kind of life he wanted. I said he was being dramatic over one silly little kiss that he wasn't even sure had happened. He looked at me in a way that made my throat feel tight. On the way to work, I messaged Nora. I told her Elliot was having secret meetings downtown and sleeping in the guest room. I said he was punishing me because a man flirted with me and because I met that man for coffee. I left out the alley part. Nora replied that some men couldn't handle a confident wife and that I shouldn't let him control me. She said if he wanted to play games, I should remind him what he was risking. At the office, my focus was shot. Tasha noticed. She asked if Elliot was still sulking. I said yes and added that he was making appointments behind my back. I talked like he was the one being sneaky. Tasha asked if I had told him about meeting Marco. I said there was nothing to tell, that it was just coffee. She gave me a look that said she didn't fully believe me, but she didn't push it. Instead, she said if he kept acting like this, I should start thinking about my own options. Around noon, my phone buzzed with a notification from our shared cloud storage. It said, new folder added, Archive A. Another popped up seconds later. File uploaded successfully. The names were boring, dates, budget, notes, but the speed of them made my chest tighten. It felt like he was packing a bag I couldn't see. I messaged him asking what Archive A was. He replied that it was just organization. I told him he was making me anxious on purpose. He didn't answer. The little typing your bubble appeared once, then vanished. That was worse than silence. By late afternoon, I decided I needed to see for myself what he was doing. I left work early, telling my supervisor I had a family issue. On the way home, I checked Marco's messages. There were 3 unread ones from the night before. One said, "Did you get in trouble?" Another, "You deserve better than a guy who walks away." The last one just said, "Here if you need me," with a little heart. I didn't answer, but I didn't delete them either. I told myself I was keeping my options open, the way men did all the time. In my head, that made us even. When I walked into the apartment, the air felt heavy. Elliot's shoes were by the door, neatly placed. The guest room door was closed. A faint buzzing sound, like a printer or scanner, came from inside. I dropped my bag loudly on purpose. Nothing changed. I stood there for a moment, staring at the door, then turned away. I wanted him to come to me, not the other way around. Sophie came home with Linda that evening. They stepped in together, carrying a small bag of cookies. Linda said she had picked Sophie up from school and hoped that was okay, since I had left work early and Elliot had his meeting. I smiled too brightly and said, "Of course, everything was fine." Linda gave me that quiet look again, the kind that said she saw more than I wanted her to. At dinner, the three of us sat at the table. Elliot joined us later, his face calm, his shirt sleeves rolled neatly. He asked Sophie about her day. She talked about her drawing project, about her friend's new backpack. He laughed softly in the right places. He did not look at me much. Sophie asked if we could play her favorite board game later. I said yes, maybe. Elliot said he had some things to finish, but he would try. She asked if he still lived with us, if he slept in the other room. He said yes for now. Those last two words hung in the air like smoke. After we put Sophie to bed, he read the story while I scrolled my phone beside them. I decided I had had enough. When he left her room and headed down the hall toward the guest room, I followed. I grabbed his sleeve lightly before he could close the door. I told him we were going to talk now. His eyes flicked past my shoulder to the dark hallway, then back to me. He stepped aside and let me into the guest room. The guest room looked different now. The bed was neatly made, but one side had a small stack of folded clothes on it. The desk was clear except for a notepad, a pen, his laptop, and a single ceramic mug. No random clutter. A small sticky note on the wall near the desk said, "Bring forms." Next to it, the calendar on his phone lay face up, showing another meeting personal set for next week. I sat on the bed and crossed my legs, like I was comfortable. I asked if he wanted to save our marriage, or if he was enjoying his little performance. He said this wasn't a performance for him. I told him he was acting like some cold stranger, not my husband. I reminded him of everything I had done for us, the events, the connections, the way people admired our life online. I said if he walked away, he would look like the bad guy. He listened, hands folded. Then he said, we should start with the truth. He listed the anniversary night, the flirting, the way I spoke about him to Marco and Jade. He mentioned the coffee date, the alley. My heart skipped at that. I asked how he knew about the alley. He said he had seen a timestamp from my work badge and a receipt from the cafe. And then someone from his office had mentioned seeing me there, with that host guy. He said he put things together. I laughed in his face. I told him he was building a whole fantasy because his ego was bruised. I said every married woman he knew probably flirted a little, and that only insecure men cared. I told him if he had paid attention to me the way Marco did, maybe none of this would have happened. I turned my own choices into a report card about him. He didn't snap. He didn't yell. He just picked up his pen and wrote something down on the notepad, the date and a few short words. I leaned forward, trying to see, but he tilted it away. I said he was being manipulative, marking things down like a therapist. He said he was simply keeping track because he had learned that my version of events changed depending on who was listening. My phone buzzed on the bed beside me. A preview popped up, a message from Jade asking, "So, did he break yet?" I quickly turned the screen over, but Elliot had already seen the contact name. He asked if I had been giving play-by-play updates to my family. I said, of course, I talked to my own mother and sister, that his cold behavior affected them too. He said our problems were between us and, soon, some other people, but not in the way I thought. I said if he kept acting like this, I would be the one filing for divorce, and everyone would see how cruel he had been. I told him I would tell them he abandoned me emotionally, that he froze me out over a joke. I believed I could still spin it. He took a slow breath and said he wasn't interested in arguing about the story anymore. He said feelings could be twisted, but facts were simple. He looked at the laptop screen for a second, where I saw a list of dates and short descriptions, then closed it gently. Then he told me he had already talked to someone about our situation. He said he had explained everything calmly, step by step. He said he had gone over our finances, our routines, Sophie's schedule. He said from now on, he wouldn't shout or threaten. Whatever he did, he would do within the rules. I asked if he was trying to scare me with lawyer talk. He said he wasn't trying to scare me at all. He said he was done trying to convince me I had crossed lines. He said the only thing left was to protect himself and Sophie and to make sure everything that happened next was structured and safe. He stood up, walked to the door, and opened it. He said quietly that he would not discuss the affair or the anniversary in circles anymore. He said he knew what he had seen, and he knew what I had admitted. He said he would handle everything from here on out properly, then nodded once and stepped into the hallway, leaving me sitting on the guest bed with my phone buzzing face down beside me. Nora's living room was too bright for how I felt. She had opened all the curtains, like she wanted the whole world to see us fix my marriage. She had set the table with snacks and cheap wine, like it was a family party. Jade sat on the couch with her phone in her hand, ready for content. Sophie played on the floor with some crayons. Linda was in the corner armchair, hands folded, watching everything. Elliot arrived right on time. He wore a plain button-up shirt and dark jeans, nothing special, but he looked finished. That was the word that came into my head. He greeted Nora and Jade politely. He kissed Sophie's head and asked if she had eaten. He nodded to Linda. He did not come over to hug me. Nora cleared her throat and said we were all there because we loved each other and wanted to help. She said marriages went through rough patches, especially when one partner was overly sensitive. She glanced at Elliot when she said that. I felt a rush of relief. At least someone was saying it out loud. I took that as my cue. I stood a little straighter and said I knew I had maybe gone too far, with a joke at our anniversary. I said social media made things look bigger than they were. I said I was sorry if Elliot felt embarrassed, but that I had never stopped being loyal where it mattered. I left out Marco. I called the coffee, a quick chat with a friend. Elliot listened without interrupting. His face did not change. That annoyed me. I said he had punished me for weeks with silence, secret meetings, and moving into the guest room. I told the room he had threatened me with lawyers and plans. I said he was trying to take everything away because his ego was hurt. Nora shook her head at him and said divorce would destroy Sophie. Jade muttered that any man who walked away from a wife like me must be crazy. Linda just watched him. Finally, Elliot spoke. He said he had no interest in punishing anyone. He said he wanted stability for Sophie and honesty for himself. He said he had tried talking to me, but I turned every talk into a performance. He said he was done arguing feelings. He had moved to facts. Before I could answer, the doorbell rang. Nora frowned but went to open it. A man in a plain jacket stood there with a thin envelope in his hand. He asked for my full name. I said yes, that was me. He placed the envelope in my hand and said it was for me, then left without another word. My fingers felt suddenly clumsy as I opened it. The first page hit my eyes in cold black letters. A filed petition for divorce, listing dates I knew too well. Our anniversary night, the coffee with Marco, the weeks after. It named marital misconduct and public humiliation and extramarital conduct as reasons. There was a section with a parenting plan, with Sophie's name printed so clearly it hurt. Another page mentioned removing online posts that harmed Elliot's reputation. My mouth went dry. I looked up at him. He didn't look proud or cruel, just steady. He said he had done this through the right channels, that everything in there followed the law. He said the plan gave Sophie a stable home and clear time with both parents. He said he would not call me names, online or in person. He said the papers said enough. Jade slowly lowered her phone, but not before her camera caught the title at the top of the petition in my shaking hands. Nora stared at me like I had dropped something priceless. Linda stood and put a hand on Sophie's shoulder. I had wanted everyone to see him as the villain. Instead, the only thing in the room anyone could see was my name on those legal pages, the list of what I had done, and Elliot walking away with his dignity while I stood there clutching the envelope with nowhere to hide.